They said AI would kill copywriting. They said your career was doomed. AI would take your job, your wife, and your friends. And they were wrong. Kind of. Yo, what's up? It's Jacob here, and in this video, we'll talk about the AI apocalypse for copywriters. Let's see if any of this sounds familiar. You were looking to make money online and saw copywriting. You got hooked by the promise of how simple it was. Work a few hours, make $10,000 a month, travel the world, the guru life. And depending on when you started, maybe it even worked. But then came the low price competition, flooding the market like a tsunami of bad grammar. And just when you thought it couldn't get any worse, bam, AI that writes copy for free. Look, sounds like the end. And honestly, for a while, I did think it was. I was comfortable with the old model. I started writing copy when Obama was still in the White House. Sold over 21 million's worth of stuff online on RevShare, and even mentored multiple writers who launched their own 7- and 8-figure careers. I thought I had it all figured out because it was working well. So when it stopped working, I wasn't happy, to put it very mildly. But I'm here to tell you that the dream isn't dead. It's just different. And in this video, I'll break down the new rules of the copywriting game. And I have to warn you, it will get a little uncomfortable. You definitely won't like everything you'll hear. But I promise, you'll leave this video with hope, a plan, and the tools to crush it in the age of AI. So in this video, we'll cover exactly how the game has changed and how to survive, what the future holds for copywriters, and if those 10K months are still possible. And spoiler alert, yes, they are. So let's get right into it. So we have three main questions, if you like, or points to answer. And the number one is, what can the AI actually do? The reasoning being, figure out what it's excellent at and don't do those things, and then do all the things that it sucks at now and in the future. Two, the perfect storm, or what's happening in the market. And this is the reason why I think copywriting not only is going to get more required and more essential as a skill to learn in the future, it's also very, very profitable right now. The market is actually going to create opportunities for copywriters. Whereas, I wish somebody had told me this, a couple of months ago, maybe a year ago when AI first came out, because I thought this was the end. AI is going to replace us. It can write words. And unfortunately, or fortunately, words is not what makes sales. And words are not what copywriters actually write, or it's just the lowest common denominator between pieces of copy, words. That's not what makes sales. And then finally, show me the money. It's going to be your strategy, or step-by-step, or the way you can exploit the AI's weakness and the market's opportunities, if you like, to make money. Right, so let's get right to it. Before we cover these questions, let's look at what the old model actually is. All right, so let's zoom in on this. Hopefully you can see it. All right, so the old model of copywriting takes a lot of work. Let's expand that. That's my very sophisticated graph for how the old model works. But essentially, it looks like this. Client has a sales problem, and the client only has two options, or back in the day, only two options. Use a known pro or find someone new. If they haven't, I can't talk today. If they have a pro, or if they have somebody they already work with, they will just use that. But if they don't, they'll post a small gig where you can apply, get the job, deliver on that small gig. Maybe it's an email, an about page rewrite, an ad, something small. You deliver, you build trust. Now you're the known pro. And so now you get given these bigger tasks, because people typically don't post, 10, 20K sales letters on any of the job sites like Upwork or anywhere else. They will work with somebody they trust because big amounts of money are involved. And so now that you have become the known pro, you kind of enter this cycle, and, the clients I've had, some of them stay with me for 6, 7, even 8 years because the ROI is good, right? The client always cares about the ROI. They don't mind paying you $10,000 a month as long as they're making as a minimum, absolute minimum, as long as they're making 5x ROI. That's kind of like my, unspoken rule. So if the client pays you 10K a month, you better be making that client at least 50K a month, at least, ideally more. Unfortunately, or fortunately, that's how the game works. So if you make clients lots of money, you typically make a small percentage of that. It's just how the game's played. And if the ROI is no longer good, or if the client thinks that they can get a better deal somewhere, they'll go back to the model, post a small gig, get another writer. But the problem with this is that it's a lot of work and the ROI part, right? So the model breaks in two places. The first place, as you've already probably seen if you've been on Upwork, Fiverr, any of those sites, is that the gig economy is an absolute bloodbath right now. The demand is falling because people now go for AI. It's the new third option. And there's a lot of low-cost supply. People from developing world joining, newbies are joining, copywriting is getting popularized. And so people are coming in for these big jobs like sales pages. And whereas in the past, it would have been quite accepted that it's like, 2, 3, 4, 5, 10K job. Now people come in and they quote like $100, $200. Is the quality going to be good? Not necessarily. In fact, almost guarantee it won't. But the price is so low that it's difficult to pitch your offer for 5K without adding a lot of things. And we'll get into that. People are just competing for scraps. It's an absolute bloodbath. So this route of getting new clients is broken. And obviously AI is making the ROI part of the calculation very unattractive. The low-cost supply is, but AI is free. And, if you divide by 0, the world ends. We all know this from math. Right, so let's look at the actual bits that you need to make money now. Number one, what can AI actually do? So 4 points here. Number one is, the quote-unquote waterline. If you fall below this, you're definitely going to be, might as well retire. And so AI is good at basic and repetitive tasks. Short and simple copy, right? So this is the stuff, really, if you're honest to yourself, that you never wanted to do anyway. Like, who wants to write SEO product descriptions for, cat-themed sock websites? It sucks, right? And that's what AI is great at. Generic email rewrites. If you need to fire someone or hire someone, that should never cross the desk of a good writer. AI is great at that. It can do it really well. Idea generation, ad variations. Once you have like your initial ad set up, again, like as a task, it sucks to create 50 ad variations, but AI can do that now. And so for those tasks, I wouldn't even attempt to take on any jobs like that because AI can do it just as well as you. As a general rule, AI writes at a C grade level, right? Which is about average or below. If that's your level and you don't plan to improve it, you might as well stop watching now because it's really, the career is done. You're dead. What does it take to go above that level? And it's not words, right? People think that words is what makes copywriters make money or what makes sales, but it's not, never has been. It's ideas, psychology, and believe it or not, it's having fun. And this is where AI sucks, right? But as a general rule, C grade or above is the only place to be. And what else can AI do is excellent summaries, right? So you can use it as a tool for yourself. Let's have a look at what the cutting edge is like if you get good at prompting. And man, your clients will not do this. They think they might do this, but they won't. But if you wanted to, you can use AI to produce B-level copy, give or take. Again, copy is about ideas and psychology, and AI is not that good at that. It's just good at words. But if you're good at prompting and you can provide a solid knowledge base of reference copy and are able to polish the final result, you can actually get some pretty decent things. Would I use this for my main sales pieces? No. But I have found that by doing this, you can get jobs. You can actually do website rewrites, campaign rewrites, proposals, Upwork proposals, things like that. If you provide good examples of your previous successful proposals, prompt it well, you can actually win jobs. So you can use this. What can you expect in the near and far future? More of the same, right? Despite of how revolutionary AI technology is, it's actually not advancing at like a exponential rate. Kind of is, but also isn't, because if you look at, the charts and graphs of how the models scale, the transformer technology, it scales in a linear fashion. You add more compute and more data and you get like that much more performance. It's not like exponential leap each time they do it. And so it's getting a little bit better at longer tasks. It's getting better at strategy, but the strategy that it gets better at is still shit because it is that C grade or above. When it comes to good writing and good strategy, very often, or in fact, I would argue that every time, it's not about creating the accepted good strategy. It's about creating something that counter positions you, your product, your client's product against what the market is doing. Typically, that will look, or it can look crazy. It can look like very unusual. And AI sucks at that because it will give everybody the same, sensible strategy. And if you're going with the sensible stuff and everybody else gets given that same sensible strategy advice, everyone is like, playing in the game of like white noise or stock images, like ideas that kind of are good, but they are so ubiquitous that it's not a good idea. And AI sucks at that. And I hope you can start seeing a pattern emerge. And that's the pattern that we'll be looking at. And then finally, what does AI suck at? And that is real strategy, out of the box thinking. Again, talking about counter positioning and unorthodox ideas. Long pieces, like we covered here, it's about psychology and ideas. Long pieces that are consistent with psychology, ideas, and even certain emotions that take you through the emotional journey. AI just cannot do that, and especially not on longer pieces and entire campaigns. Again, it's the same thing, taking somebody from an ad to a landing page or a lander to an email to maybe an upsell page, and keeping that psychology, those ideas consistent. AI can't do that. There's just no path for it to even be able to do that. Reasoning is very unlikely to get it there. Right, so let's look at, actually you'll keep this open. Let's look at the perfect storm brewing. This is good news. When I finally figured this out, I was really happy. I kind of thought that copywriting as a skill was kind of dead, and now I'm thinking it is poised to take over the market for a few writers. And you're watching this video, so you'll be one of those. So what's happening in the market? The first issue I'm seeing is one-click posting. And that is somebody gives an AI a prompt, and then the next thing you know, the thing that the AI gives them with the tiniest edits goes right out into the market. And if you know anything about how AIs are built and trained, they have compute and then they have data, and you kind of combine those two and you get the AI. And it's effectively a fluid library of the content that it has consumed, kind of. The problem is that it scours the internet for this data. And now the internet is getting absolutely flooded with this same C-grade stock image standard copy. It's everywhere. And so the quality of content on the internet is falling. And even now you can see it, that even marginally good content or copy with a bit of personality, a bit of character, a bit of something human, it stands out. And it's getting worse. And so the next models of AI, unless they come up with a completely new technology, are stuck. They've sort of kneecapped themselves because there is no stable, no reliable way to predict what's written by AI and what's written by humans. So the data quality is stuck at this C-grade level. The second thing I'm seeing is that the customers are burned by bad writers and AI copy producing shit results, right? So everybody kind of got FOMO, jumped on the AI train, tried AI copy, maybe even got some results. But again, everyone's doing the same thing. And if everyone's doing the same thing with copy, with marketing in general, you need to stand out. And so the result quality just falls off the cliff. So the customers in general have low trust. They see so many options, there's so many eyes, so many tools, so many new writers, but they don't trust any of them. Although the need to grow the business is just the same, if not bigger, because now they're having all this FOMO, seeing other people scale. And like I said, there's so many new, information, tools, skills. It's all a big learning curve. And because, your clients are already busy, they don't have the attention, the focus to actually be able to consume any of it. And so they're stuck in analysis paralysis. So what's missing in the market right now is full service, high ROI solutions, right? Something that they perceive as really valuable, and also something that takes things off their plate. End-to-end strategy, where you can actually explain what you're doing from the very first moment at the sale, that the customer enters the sales funnel or the sales journey, all the way right down to the end, where you plan out all the steps, like what's going to happen, how's it going to go. Hey, I can't do that. And trust. And so those are the three elements that we will solve, right? And the solution is actually very simple. You'll find that none of this is probably going to be like news to you. But unfortunately, in the past, this is what the good people did or good writers did. Now it's a survival requirement. If you want to survive, you got to do this stuff, right? So full service, high ROI solutions, it means you have to take over an entire process. So the way to think about it is, are you taking tasks off the client's plate? You want to give them peace of mind and just sell the results. So if you're doing email, that means that you would do the research, look at their previous campaigns, maybe even some of the previous designs. You don't have to become a designer, but you can see what worked, what didn't. Create a report, or at least be able to explain what elements you're taking from it. Write the copy, set up the email, track the results, and then again do a debrief with the client. So they know that if you're doing email, they don't have to think about email. Like, you are gonna handle it. And for years, for a better part of a decade, I was working with this, and I'm sure you have been as well, right? You create a Google Doc, you send it off to the client, and they're like, good, task done. That's no longer an option. And if you're still doing that, I'm telling you, you're a dying breed, like a dinosaur. So now you're selling results, peace of mind, and you're actively removing tasks from the client's plate. And I'll explain how you can actually do that in just a second. But that's how you solve the full service, high ROI thing, right? You take over a process, and that's how you think about it. Let's have a look at the next one, trust. For trust, there's only two things you really need. One is build authority. And this doesn't have to be great. You just have to have some form of a footprint, right? So make content. YouTube videos are fantastic. If you can make YouTube videos, they're a lot of work, but, make them. I'm making this one for similar reasons. TikToks, if you can't, write tweets, posts on LinkedIn, maybe Medium, your own blog, but ideally on some platform where people can find you. And it's not a choice. Like right now, it's an existential requirement. And like I said, you're not going to like everything I'm about to tell you. As writers, we don't tend to be like very, extroverted public people, but you can't, there's no choice. You have to do this. This is like, if you don't do it, you might as well retire. And the second thing is build a name for yourself. Now, this is a little controversial in the writing world. Some people say like niche down, and then some other people will tell you never niche down. You're kind of limiting your options. I'm kind of in the somewhat niche down option, and for a simple reason, especially when we're doing this. When you niche down, it's so much easier to become a pro at that thing, right? If you're doing newsletters for SaaS companies, they use specific tools, right? That's what I do. I consult SaaS companies, and I do, growth hacking or growth operations. I do some fractional CMO stuff. They use very specific tools. And if you're using, e-commerce or something else, they'll be, again, using different tools. They'll be using Klaviyo. If you're using SaaS, they'll probably be doing like Customer.io or some other platform. If you have to implement things for the client, it's much easier if you know the platforms. And that's where niching down is easier. Plus, every client you talk to, if you do a good job, they will typically have similar clients in their friends list, right? And it's also much easier to get niche famous. If you don't do the niching strategy, then you have to typically build a name with something else. But the final goal, what you try and achieve, is you try and own a little bit of real estate on the client's sort of mind map in its internal processing. So when they think of sales, marketing, emails, anything, your name kind of pops up there. So that's all you have to do, right? Some footprint and somewhat of a name for yourself, which will solve the trust issue. Because if they know you even a little bit, they will pick you over one of the writers that they don't know anything about. And finally, the strategy itself. Number one thing is be plugged in. And to be plugged in, you have to improve your content diet, right? Obviously, you have to watch my videos. I do the best stuff. But there's like a gazillion other channels out right now. As long as you stay up to date with what works, what doesn't, what advertising platforms have, what terms they've banned, you just have to keep up to date, because there's other writers out there right now making a lot of money. If you just watch their content and get inspired by the fact that, yes, you can make it today, it's going to do wonders for you. Stop watching negative or useless crap, right? So cut down on all your Mr. Beast videos and definitely cut down on videos that complain about AI or freelancers taking their jobs. That's not going to help you. Second thing is network with other writers, right? Do referral exchanges. Like if you do, you write for supplements, but you get a client that has a SaaS offer. Maybe you can exchange leads. Maybe you can get even paid for that. And get up-to-date strategies from real people in the field using them. Because the reality is, if you get a strategy from a video like this, maybe not this one, I'll probably get like 500 views if that. But if like Iman Gaji or Alex Hormozi mention a strategy, and if they ever mention like a title for an email, or they kind of give you a screenshot of the type of email they've sent, that email is instantly cooked, because 100,000 people will be sending that exact email without changing a single thing to everybody. And so if you send that, you're basically back in this same pool right here where, you're competing for scraps, where there's massive oversupply. And so you have to stand out. And the only way to do that is to talk to real people. And another thing to understand is that, unlike in the past, currently there are no secrets left, right? All these courses that people try and sell you, they will tell you all the stuff in free videos. They always do. It's just how the market's changed. The only thing you would pay for these days is feedback on your work, implementation, time compression, meaning that they take all those 2-hour, 3-hour videos across several channels and put them together in like one library, right? And then tools, templates, things like that. And finally is network with other business owners. Like I said, I do fractional CMO work for clients. I constantly need new writers, right? And so people who network with me get work purely because I'm not going through all of this process, right? This is a lot of work. And I know that AI sucks and I want to talk to a human. And so that's what I do. I just give work to the people I already know. And the business owners are just like that, right? They're all like that. So, like I said, none of this stuff is news, right? You've probably heard all of this other stuff a gazillion times. But the difference is, in the past, you could get away without doing it and just run that old model and make a lot of money with it. Today, this is a survival requirement, right? And how do you implement all of this is you become a capitalist and entrepreneur. I know that as a writer, this is this is too much, right? It feels like too much because you never wanted to hire people or build a business or a brand. You just wanted to write words and make money. You can still do that. But these days, you have to learn to hire help. Maybe that's just a VA or like a Swiss Army knife of implementation. Somebody who can help you, set up the emails in the client's software. It doesn't have to be complicated, but you can't do it all on your own. If you're going to be making content, even a little bit of content, and then maybe you're doing outreach, right? You're sending DMs to people that you think you might work with, and then you have to write copy and do research and implement them. It's too much for one person. So hiring help, even like a little bit of help, can be a game changer. And so finally, your success now equals overcoming kryptonite. As a writer, I completely relate, We tend to be very singularly minded people, right? That kind of like just do our one thing. We focus on the writing, we get our deep work in, and we don't want to focus on all the clicking around and all the tasks we have to manage other people. You maybe even have like an ADHD type of brain. I certainly do. And so it's difficult to focus on multiple things. But that's the survival requirement now. You have to get good at it. The only way you can go back to sending Google Docs to a client that just gives you a stable paycheck is if you're a small cog in a very big machine, which is also a job. And if that's that's what you want to do for a while, I think jobs will still exist. They won't be as well paid, but they exist. The thing that helped me the most, and I think will help you, is remember your why. Because when you got into copy, there was a lot to learn, right? And it's the same thing, just the next level. You have to think of all these little extra skills as just the next level of your evolution, if you like. And if you did get good at copy, even if you just got to C level, C grade copy, like average copy, where you can convince someone to buy, maybe a warm audience, those same skills aren't getting wasted. That same skill is what's going to take you to the next level. When we talk about, getting good at strategy, all you have to do is watch some videos of people, doing, if you're doing like ads, there's people who will explain how they do ads, start to finish. You need your research skills. You need to figure out what the psychology for the customer is, and then just build the ad. Those same skills that you've already built will serve you for the next level. It's just that you now have to learn to implement all this stuff. And right, so what about your choice? You don't have any. Like I said, this is a do or die moment, adapt or die. It's all about survival. And I get it. It might feel like it's a bit too much, but I'm hoping that this at least gives you a bit of hope. There's definitely a lot of money still to be made. It's just not the way that, we used to do it in the past. And if it still feels too much, I'll leave you with this message.
Tough time never lasts. Only tough people last.